Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Oh, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Stotra Sata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Stotra Sata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Hare Krishna Maha Mantra Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. So, reading from Transcendental Diaries by His Grace Hari Sori Prabhu. We're doing chapter 4 today, entitled Honolulu. May 27th, 1976. So I'll read and try to comment, say something for your transcendental pleasure. And if anybody wants to add something while I'm speaking, you're welcome to do so. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmaletam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manubhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Mayam Dadati Swaparantika. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Shindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So May 27, 1976. A letter has arrived from Dharmadakshya Das, a Back to Godhead staff writer, enclosing a pamphlet called Simple Living and High Thinking. It has been especially prepared for mass distribution at a United Nations conference called Habitat, to be held in Vancouver from the end of May until mid-June. Guru Das and Revatinanda Swamis, along with others, will be overseeing a pandal and exhibition called Vedic Habitat. Prabhupada liked the idea very much, and on his walk this morning, he said that the UN should be informed of this principle. God is the father and material nature is the mother of all living entities. Then every living being, including the dogs, trees, and others, can be seen as sons and daughters of the same mother and father. The preaching should be that this is the grand solution to all mankind's troubles. Yeah, so Srila Prabhupada wanted to preach Krishna consciousness to everybody. That's including the United Nations. Right? I remember reading recently in Srila Prabhupada Lila Amrita how before he even left India to come to the West, he was writing so many letters to the Prime Minister of India, to Mahatma Gandhi, pleading with them, especially Gandhi, that take up Krishna consciousness, forget your politics. Because Gandhi was a very influential person. And he wanted him that politics is not going to help Gandhi. And in a letter he wrote to Gandhi, he said that you will have a very bad death if you continue like this. At that, such an old age Gandhi was, but he still wanted to be in politics. And we know that came true, that he was assassinated, But Prabhupada wanted to preach to everyone, including the United Nations. And yeah, this is what we should do. We should preach to everyone. If I recall correctly, I think Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu met some big influential person in the airport. I don't know if it was Jacob Zuma or someone. But somebody, I remember seeing a picture and he gave him a Bhagavad Gita, I think it was. So yeah, we have to preach like this. Everybody should be informed of this principle that God is the father and material nature is the mother of all living entities. This is the real United Nations. That the whole world believes that there's only one Father, one God, and every citizen in this world is the son or daughter of God. As he walked along the ocean front, occasional helicopters flying overhead, castrated palms bending in the stiff breeze. Prabhupada declared that anyone who cannot accept this simple philosophy is a rascal. This is communism. First of all, you accept one Father, or the whole world is Father's property, and every living being has a right to enjoy the Father's property. Why you are thinking this portion is Russia, this portion is America, it is the Father's property. So if there is a crush in India or China, why not allow them to come to Russia or America? And then they'll say, no, this is my property. You're not allowed to come here. What is this philosophy, Prabhupada is asking? So yes, like this he goes on talking about that because of the designation of the body, there's so many boundaries and therefore so many different countries. And if there's some issue in one country and people are suffering there, then we're not allowed to go to another country, to cross the border. Why? Because you don't belong to this country. But Prabhupada is stressing that the whole world, the whole creation belongs to Krishna, one Father, right? And he says that this is all selfish motives. That's all, rascal. And devils citing scripture, philosophy, rascals citing philosophy. So yes, it's like devil citing scripture, Everything is selfish motive. And everybody is twisting the philosophy and twisting scripture for their own selfish needs. Like that. He told us that modern so-called philosophers who do not accept God are not actually philosophers. How they can be philosophers? All meat eaters, drunkards, woman hunters, and they can be philosophers? Prabhupada is asking. They are dogs, simply barking. That's all. Simply dogs. So Prabhupada is very strong, right? Of course, this was Prabhupada, And then he calls his philosophers dogs. Why? Because yes, these philosophers who's coming up with all these bogus philosophies are drunkards. They're meat eaters. And they want to enjoy women and liquor and, wine. So how can you be a philosopher if you're addicted to all these sinful things? Shukadev stated that the more confusing and contradictory a philosophy is, the more the common man thinks it to be profound. This is true. When I was younger and when I was in school, there was this one teacher. This was in primary school. And he spoke to us in such high English. And we didn't understand what he was saying, The words we didn't understand. But because he spoke in that high English language, we were like, this teacher, he's like the best. But as we grew older, we realized that we didn't understand what he said. So something like this, when the more confusing and contradictory a philosophy is, the more common man thinks it's profound. And then Prabhupada, listen to this. Prabhupada agreed, if you present something with jugglery of words, it is very deep thought. Then Prabhupada let loose a stream of fluent gibberish in a hilarious imitation of word jugglery philosopher. I'm going to attempt to say what Prabhupada said. Upa philosophana bhagava dag den dikuleni gondolish ready lactisopomorphy. Put some words. And then Prabhupada repeats the same thing again. Is there any meaning? Prabhupada is asking. You have some jugglery of words. They present like that. Upa philosophana bhagava dag den de philosophy. And then Harisari Prabhu says, his brilliant mimicry had us all in stitches as he asked, what is the meaning of dag den di philo? But they will put like that. I'm sure when Prabhupada said those words, it was more hilarious. And then Prabhupada speaks about, continuing the same thing, accepting God as the Father. And he was saying, especially since the American people, they declare, even on the banknotes they have, in God we trust, right? But do they really know who God is? Who do they trust? Who's this God? And then Prabhupada is telling his disciples, especially Hayagriva, that he should write to them and tell them who the real God is, who this God is. Like that. In class, Srila Prabhupada continued to preach on points raised during the walk, especially the idea that God is dead. The verse lent itself very succinctly to the topic because it described that the verse described that the moment of death had come for the foolish Ajamil, yet all he could think about was his family, especially his young son Narayan. Once again, Srila Prabhupada's common sense logic revealed the narrow and limited thinking of atheistic philosophers. This is our position. We say that God is dead. God is not dead. God is coming very soon. Wait a few years. He'll be dead. This is the position. You rascal, God is not dead. God is coming to kick you, to kill you. Yeah. Yeah, so many people don't believe in God. But why don't they believe in God? Because they don't want to follow the rules and regulations of God. But yes, Prabhupada is saying that God is coming. He's coming to kill you. So at the time of death, when death is coming, then people are praying to God. Yeah? So God is coming. He's coming to kick you, to kill you. And then Prabhupada says, what is death? You have to change your body. It may be lower degree or higher degree, but you have to change your body. And then he speaks about the 8,400,000 different species of life forms. And we have to accept one of them. So that is the real problem of life. If we forget the real problem, Prabhupada says, and blindly or foolishly say that God is dead, then he says that God may be dead, but God's law is not dead. And he says that suppose like a king dies, and in the prison house of the king there's so many prisoners, and just because the king dies, it does not mean that the prisoners are suddenly become free now, because the king's laws are still acting. So whether we believe in God or not, whether the atheists believe in God or not, God's law will still act, and death will come. God may be dead or alive, it doesn't matter. Suppose by law we are prisoners. Oh, I just said that. Yeah, suppose we are prisoners. We are prisoners and we are in the prison house, and all of a sudden the president or king dies. So the prisoners are not free, right? Prabhupada declared that anyone who proclaims such a philosophy is actually dead, because he identifies with the gross physical body, which is always dead. It is simply a machine and moves only due to the presence of the soul. Prabhupada speaks about how when Krishna chastised Arjuna in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, because he was on the bodily platform, he was concerned about bodily relationships. And as Krishna chastised Arjuna in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita for his bodily concerns, Srila Prabhupada similarly criticized the modern day thinkers. So all these rascal philosophers, they are writing about this body, that's all. But this is not the subject matter for the learned scholars. What is this body? A combination of matter. It is moving, and as soon as the living soul is out of the body, it is useless. So what is there important talking about this dead body? Yeah, so they don't understand that the real thing is the soul. And the body is just dead matter. And just like a car, if the driver doesn't sit in it and move the car, then the car will not move. So the body is made up of the same made up of matter, just like a car made up of earth, water, fire, air, ether. The body is made up of the same thing, the same elements. And so it's matter. And because the driver has to sit in the body to make it operate, so this body is dead until the soul, until the body is only alive or active until the soul leaves, and that is death. His conclusion was as crushingly final to the foolish philosopher's speculative talk as death itself. When death will come, no one will save you. You are challenging God is dead. When God will come and make you killed, nobody can save you. We are so foolish for thinking that God is dead, and I shall continue my life with my wife, my children, my countrymen, my nation will save me. That is not possible. So Prabhupada gives it straight. No wife, no children, nobody will save us at the time of death. I remember listening to one lecture by His Holiness Radhanath Swami, and he was saying that during the war times, the soldiers used to dig sort of like trenches and hide in those trenches. But he was saying that, I forget what they call those trenches, the foxhole or something. Foxhole, huh? And he was saying that when the bombs are coming, even though some of the soldiers were atheistic, they didn't believe in God, but when the bombs were coming, then suddenly they were praying to God. They were praying to a higher person, a higher force. So yes, at the time of death, when God is coming to kick you and kill you, then suddenly now you want to pray to God. So actually everybody believes that God is there. There is God. Tamal Krishna Maharaj found, the next part speaks about how Tamal Krishna Maharaj phoned Srila Prabhupada and speaking about Madhudvisha Prabhu and things, how Madhudvisha received a letter from one lady and they were speaking about marriage. And then Prabhupada says that Prabhupada keeps saying that if Madhudvisha wants to marry, he has no objection, but he should not give up his service. One boy, Nataraj Das, an American boy who joined in Melbourne in 1972, has seen Madhudvisha in New York recently. He told the devotees that Madhudvisha is still chanting, but he will not come back to the temple in New York. Then we move on to May 28, 1976. The morning walks are lively. Interesting exchanges with Srila Prabhupada encouraging the devotees to raise all possible objections to Krishna consciousness. He adeptly defeats every argument on no matter what it is. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath Ki Jai. He adeptly defeats every argument no matter what it is or where it comes from. Whether dealing with complex issues raised by established thinkers or general objections to a life of God consciousness, his brilliance illuminates the shadows of doubt cast by the ignorance of atheism. Shukadev Prabhu raised a common complaint against the mood of humble service and dependence that a religionist seeks to cultivate. He says, those persons who are atheistic, they say that God is created out of necessity, that people have a necessity to have their father image. So therefore they create religion. Man needs a father image, so therefore he creates the idea of God. They say that because people are feeling this necessity, it is a crutch. Prabhupada turned the argument on its head, offering a simple but practical example as to why the feeling of necessity is actually a symptom of advanced life. No. Necessity means there is. Otherwise, why necessity? Prabhupada says, so the argument was that the atheists say that man created this idea of God out of necessity. Man may be going through some tribulations and things, and they need a crutch, and God is this crutch. Right? So Prabhupada says that when you feel hungry, there's necessity of food. Right? When there's necessity of light, then the sun is there. Right? Yeah. The eyes want to see, therefore the object of seeing is there. The hand wants to touch, so the object of touch is there. The nose wants to smell, the object of smell is there. So as soon as you feel necessity, the thing is there. Right? And then Shukadev says that they say that necessity should not be God, but it should be transferred to man. And then Prabhupada said he's not even talking about God, he's talking about necessity. As soon as you feel some necessity, the object is there. Right? Gopa Vrindapala joined the argument. He said that necessity is our mistake. That is our insecurity. So Prabhupada retorts, you are a mistake, then you are a rascal. That's all. Mistake is committed by rascal. If you commit a mistake, then you are a rascal. Then don't talk, stop talking. Who is going to hear a rascal? No sane man will hear. So Prabhupada stopped walking, and then he turned and he says that feeling hungry, he asked the question, when you're feeling hungry, is there no necessity of food? Who's that rascal who will say, no, there is no necessity of food? He's feeling hungry, he wants something to eat. And if he says, no, there is no necessity of food, then is he not a rascal? And if you say, now we are feeling the necessity of food, but that is my mistake, is that the answer? Right? So the necessity is there. There's no mistake. And then Prabhupada goes on to say that yes, necessity is there, and he speaks about then advancement. Therefore he told us the feeling of necessity is the difference between the intelligence and the dull. The dull have no necessity, and the intelligent have necessity. So dull matter, this table doesn't require anything. There's no necessity, right? It is dull matter, and as soon as you have got life, then there is necessity. Without feeling necessity means dullness. He speaks about how in Hawaii, because they were in Hawaii, and he says the original inhabitants, they didn't have a necessity for much. They didn't have a necessity for big skyscrapers, for motor vehicles, things like that. But when the Americans, they got into Hawaii, then they started to develop it. Why? Because they felt that this is advancement. Big skyscrapers is advancement. Motor cars is advancement, right? So then, he says that is the difference between advanced and not advanced. He pointed out that material scientists are inventing the motor car, television, and other amenities, even when there is no use for such things. They have created necessities because to feel the necessity of something is the symptom of advancement. So then someone asked the question, they were wondering, like, our philosophy is simple living, higher thinking, right? And then, the people may argue that, say in India, where there is no material development, right? So they're supposed to be advanced. Indians supposed to be like spiritually advanced. So, but before he can even finish his sentence, and Prabhupada immediately put it into perspective. He says that, first of all, we have to understand that one who has no necessity, he's in the lowest status, right? Dull matter. One who has got necessity, he's in a higher status. then higher and higher and higher. So where's that highest status? When your only necessity is Krishna. That's the highest necessity, the highest status. Right? This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Shunyayitam jagat sarvam govinda virahena me. That is necessity. That without Govinda, your whole life is vacant. Without Krishna, your life is vacant. So that is, so Prabhupada says that makes it finer and finer and finer. Right? And then he is this the Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manamaya, like that? Pushta Krishna asked. Prabhupada says there are so many stages, but here is the highest status. Govinda virahena me. Yugayitam mimeshana. For want of Govinda, I am thinking one moment to be 12 years or more. Yugayitam nimeshena chakshush pravarshyayitam. I am crying like torrents of rain from my eyes. That is the highest necessity. I don't see anything. Everything is vacant. And that we have experienced. Then Prabhupada explains how when somebody near and dear to us, someone that we love, when they pass away, then we feel like our whole life is gone. Our life is vacant. Right? When we love someone and they pass away, they die. So we feel our whole life is vacant. So like that, I have no necessity but Krishna. So we have to see first of all necessity, then the quality of the necessity. So when we say there's no necessity, that means dull matter. And when there is no necessity of God, one is in the lowest stage of life. In Bhagavad Gita, we understand Naradama, animal life, or less than animal life, Prabhupada says. Lowest of mankind. If one does not feel the necessity of God, that means lowest of mankind. Necessity of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also. A Vaishnava says that I have no more necessity, but he has no more necessity of the false necessities of the material world. So Vaishnava has no material necessities, but his only necessity is Krishna, pleasing Krishna. So like that, necessity, man, when they say that man has created God out of necessity, it's not that. He is there. Because there is a necessity for man to think that there is God, then God definitely is there. So then Shukadev, he carries on with the same point, but he says, as a necessity, this is a symptom of weakness. And then Prabhupada said, rascal, this weakness, you're already in necessity of so many things. Make all the necessities zero, he challenged. At last, we at least feel necessity of a woman. That you cannot avoid. And then you'll be punished with shoes. Then you'll become a servant of woman. Then you become thief. You'll become rascal, rogue. You'll be beaten by shoes, and everything is gone. Now these are your necessities. So Prabhupada says that even the hippies, they may have come from wealthy families and had everything, but they left their families thinking that they don't need anything. There's no necessity. They don't need the necessities of material life. But Prabhupada says, but still the woman is there. Right? They have necessities there. Nature is so powerful, you'll have to feel this necessity. And with this necessity, you'll require so many necessities. Yeah. So although the hippies thought they didn't require anything and they left their rich homes and families and things, but still, there was free. There were, like free sex. This was what was going on with the hippies. So still, the necessity for the woman or the man is still there. Was still there, right? Prabhupada laughs. He says, "They are talking like madmen. What the madman does not talk, and what the goat does not eat." Yes, this means rascal. So then we move on to the last part. Pradyumna Prabhu is feeling a bit better now, and this morning he began, for the first time, to lead the devotees in responsive chanting of the Sanskrit verse instead of Srila Prabhupada. He read out the translation. Ajamil then saw 3 awkward persons with deformed bodily features, twisted faces, fierce, and hair standing erect on their bodies. With ropes in their hands, they had come to take him away to the abode of Yamraj. Then he saw them. When he saw them, he was extremely bewildered, and because of attachment to his child, who was playing a short distance away, Ajamil began to call him loudly by his name. Thus, with tears in his eyes, he somehow or other chanted the holy name of Narayana. Srila Prabhupada uncovered a revealing insight into Ajamil's act of chanting the name of his son Narayana. First, he explained that because he had been a good Brahmana in his early life, Krishna had mercifully inspired him to name his son with the holy name, thereby offering him the opportunity to call out his name at death. So here we can see that Krishna will interfere into the devotee's life. He'll sort of put his hand, like here, Prabhupada is saying that because Ajamil was a good Brahmana in the early life, he was a devotee, so Krishna somehow gave him the intelligence or inspired him to name his son Narayan. Right? So it was just like made me think that Krishna, he interferes in the devotees' lives. He for the betterment of the devotee, and Krishna will take care of the devotee. Just like this week, while driving somewhere, I think I was going to the shop, and there was another vehicle that came speeding from towards me. And I had to, so where I live is a farm, and the roads are gravel, and there's like a big ditch at one place. So this is exactly where the car is coming down to hit me, and I had to avoid the car. But it happened such that my car went into that ditch, and I just thought to myself, okay, this is it. But somehow or the other, my car came out. And I couldn't explain it, because I didn't do anything. So, and then it made me think, I realized that this is definitely Krishna. Right? So, I'm trying to be a devotee. So yeah, Krishna, he puts his hand. He will protect the devotee. So because Ajamil was a good Brahmana in his early life, he was the devotee, somehow fell down. So Krishna gave him that inspiration to name his son Narayan. Right? So, but there was also another hidden transaction that took place immediately after he called out for his son. It was only something a self-realized soul could know. And as part of the disciplic succession of pure devotees, Srila Prabhupada revealed it to us. Prabhupada says, this opportunity was given to Ajamil, that although he fell down from his standard of devotional service, he got the opportunity of chanting Narayan. When we are afraid of something, so we chant. We call somebody who is very dear. This is very psychological. So when he was too much afraid of this Yamaduta, unconsciously he chanted the holy name of Narayan. So somehow or other he remembered Narayan. Some commentator says that when he chanted Narayan, then all of his reactions of sinful life immediately disappeared, and he remembered the real Narayan. Because he, in his boyhood, was trained up as a Vaishnava. So there is big comments on this incident. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has written 3 or 4 pages about this. So his opinion is that as soon as he chanted the holy name of Narayan, immediately he remembered the real Narayan. That this child Narayan, I'm calling my child, how he'll be able to save me from the hands of this Yamaduta. He remembered that Narayan. If he kindly helps me, then I can be saved. Immediately there was response. So Ajamil, yes, at the time of death he called Narayan. And then Prabhupada is explaining that when he called Narayan in that state, in that helpless state, because obviously he was calling his son Narayan throughout the son's life, or his life. But when the time of death came for Ajamil, then as Giriraj Maharaj says, this is life's final exam. So we all practicing Krishna consciousness, practicing spiritual life for that final exam, which is death. And at the time of death, Ajamil, he passed the exam, because when he called Narayan, he called with surrender. And then Prabhupada says, yes, then he came to the realization that I'm calling my son Narayan, but how will my son help me at this time? How will he save me from the Yamadutas? And then he remembered real Narayan. Like that. So yeah, so this last part was very I like very much, because first of all, Krishna interfered in Ajamil's life. He inspired him to name his son Narayan. Right? Why? Simply because Ajamil was devotee. So when we become devotee, then there's the evidence that Krishna is there. He will protect the devotee. And at the time of death, Ajamil remembered Krishna, the real Krishna. He didn't, although he was calling his son, but at the final exam, he passed the exam. He remembered the real Narayan. So we'll stop here. Any comments, questions? Yes, Mataji. She's bringing the mic.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Very nice class, Prabhu.
Thank you.
So my question was, in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says that at the last moment, when you take my name, you will be delivered from this cycle of birth and death, just as Ajamil. So you gave 2 examples of soldiers when they are in the war. They are, they're scared of death, and they pray to God.
Yes.
And even other people who are dying, they're praying to God in fear, but still will they be delivered, or how does it work?
you're saying so those soldiers or other people as well at that time of death,
Yeah.
they begin to start praying to God, and will they be delivered? We as Prabhupada has taught us, and also in Srimad Bhagavatam, Shri Prahlad Maharaj is preaching to his friends that we have to practice Krishna consciousness from childhood, right? So why do we have to practice from childhood? Because it's not easy, just because at the time of death we're praying to God. And we just read that Prabhupada said the Americans, they say, in God we trust, but who is God? So these people may be praying to God, but who is that God they're praying to? So if they're not praying to Krishna, if they're praying to like those soldiers I was speaking about, they were atheists, right? So who are they praying to? They don't know Krishna's name, or maybe they know some name of God and may start praying. But it depends on their surrender at that time also. So at the end of the day, it's up to Krishna, whether Krishna wants to take them back or not. But what I'm saying is that Prabhupada is saying we have to practice from childhood. Prahlad Maharaj saying the same thing. Why? Because it's not easy at the time of death. The goal is to remember God at the time of death, remember Krishna at the time of death. So why practice from childhood? Because it's a difficult process. So if we start practicing from childhood, then we will remember Krishna at the time of death. Prabhupada also speaks about how people say, I still have time. When I come to a certain age and then I know death is coming, then I'll take to spiritual life. But Prabhupada says that may not work. What's the chances of us remembering Krishna, right? So although these soldiers were praying to God, they may have been praying to, not to Krishna, to some light maybe. So maybe they'll go to Brahma Jyoti, I don't know, but come back. To give you a definite answer, I'm saying if they haven't practiced from childhood, or haven't practiced Krishna consciousness or God consciousness, and then at the time of death they may not go back to God. But anybody else has some deeper realization about that to add? No.
Thank you.
But we can, if I can research it and we can tell you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.